All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Snap on Ego, a Marvel Snap podcast. My name is Brad, otherwise known as Bradsford. I am joined by Chris Bootman. Hi, Chris. We're back.
Yeah, it feels like it's been forever, but we wanted to wait for the almighty patch to drop.
And it dropped, so we got
like
some stuff to talk about with that. And of course, if you haven't seen already, well, you're about to learn all about the patch from us. So congrats, sit tight and enjoy. And there's a lot of discourse and complaining, and as there always is. I don't think you can ever make a patch ever for any game, no matter what it is. And everyone's just like, "This is great." Then we call
perfect. You guys nailed it. Just 100% agreement.
There's some good. There's obviously some bad, but we will get into that. So, Chris, I know you have it pulled up. Let's just get right into it.
Yeah. So first one, let's talk Thanos. So obviously that was this S tier type deck, and they made a few changes. Well, basically two changes to the actual Thanos card. All right. Mm-hmm. So they dropped Thanos back. They dropped him down to a 6/10, and then they changed how the Space Stone functions. Rather than you move something from that location, you can move something to it. So for all the Lockjaw players and stuff, you can't just be moving things around all willy-nilly. A lot of people like to move Lockjaw, or they move something big and then just start cycling stones again. So yeah, then I guess we'll talk about the other cards that work in conjunction with it, like Quinjet. So they changed Quinjet, so it's kind of like Sarah, where it's a minimum of 1. So now the stones aren't free; they cost 1 energy. And yeah, I actually have not played my Thanos deck since it happened. You said you played for a bit.
Yeah, I've played Thanos in total for about 4 hours.
Dang.
Just with Thanos, I probably played maybe an hour of Shuri, and my takeaway of Shuri is like it feels a little bit weaker with some kinds of interactions and stuff, but for the most part, it feels like the same deck. So that's why I kind of put it down. I was like, I'm bored. I can only do so much testing, but Thanos I can enjoy. So yeah, I'm going to say that, I mean, obviously you cut Quinjet. I think you cut Aero is what I decided. I went back to Dino and then I put Okoye back in, which I don't know if that's correct. At least to try and make that old version still functional in some way. I've seen a lot of people doing the Ant-Man, like Zoo-ish kind of like build with like Valkyrie and stuff. I don't know if that's the way. I mean, they all seem fine, and of course, not having 0 cost stones is the thing for it. But the deck still feels flexible. It still feels strong.
Yeah.
I didn't see much issue with the games. I didn't run away with as many games. Like it's just like it was over by turn 4, where I have like so much power already on board. It felt a bit fairer, but the flexibility of the deck is still king, and I think that's why the deck's still going to be maybe not like tier 0, but very good.
Yeah, I had so many subscribers and stuff ask me leading up to the patch. They're like, "Oh, should I still get it? Should I still get it?" I'm like, I don't think they're going to do too much of this thing, and it's still going to be that versatile deck, right? Like you can put anything. Yeah, yeah, you can like do anything with Thanos. Like the deck that I've been playing, I made a video about the other day, is this like Valkyrie control style deck, right? It has like Spider-Man and Professor X in there, and it has a little bit of bounce. So there's just so much you could do. So I'm like, I'm still a fan of the card. So, but yeah, I actually played that version of the deck, but I haven't messed around with the Lockjaw one. But yeah, I guess that leads us into let's talk Aero. So they nerfed Aero. They brought her power up by 1, but rather than moving every single card played that turn, it moves the last card. So that I played with a few times, and it was fine. It was fine. Overall, I think what they did with Aero was fine. I think I'm one of the few. I think you're one of the few. But there was a game, and I was able to play around Aero. I knew Aero was coming, right? And I was able to toss down like a rock that I got in my deck, and it just moved it, and I ended up winning, And I'm like, phenomenal. This is great. Rather than having to look at your hand and say, I do not have nearly enough cards to clog a lane to win this thing. So like, I don't know. I'm happy, but a lot of people are saying they killed the card. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the reason I think people are saying they killed the card is, unlike Leader peaked at what? Like it never even sniffed like the 30-40% play rate, right? Even during its height, it was probably around like I remember seeing like mid-teens kind of thing, similar to what Leech is actually at, to be honest. But when you go from Aero being unarguably like the best card in the game, the best turn 6 play in the game, not even close, to a just fine tech card, I can see why people jump the gun of being like, oh, they fucking killed it. I don't think they killed her. I do think there is a little awkwardness with the way the nerf goes. My biggest example would be, I've seen a couple other people bring this up, is if you're going against Shuri, for example, right? And then turn 6, they're going to go Taskmaster. What card do they play first? It's Taskmaster. They have to.
Yeah.
So if it was the first card rather than the last card, you could still have that interaction of at least keeping at bay a Taskmaster or moving it to a specific location, rather than, because now you can just go Taskmaster 0 and then you pull the 0 with Aero rather than pulling the Taskmaster itself. But again, against like things like Galactus, Aero is still gonna be fantastic. And I think they wanted to bring her down. Like what Glenn said when they talk about nerfing Aero is that they, or at least they said in the developer comments as well, they said that it's by far the most played 5-cost card. And they don't like that. And I completely agree. Because I don't know if you felt this way, but I definitely did. Whenever I was playing a deck, and if I was trying to build a deck or brew it or whatever, I'm like, I gotta include Aero. I'm starting with 11 cards.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. What I realized, it took me forever to realize it. Aero is one of my last pool 3 cards. So I never used her, right? And then it wasn't until recently, this season, where I realized how powerful she was. And like in the patch notes, they said, but we don't want her pushing the majority of other 5-cost cards out of decks. But like you're saying, there was always just like a slot for Aero. I remember I've been tinkering, I've been cooking up some decks, and I was like, any deck I built that didn't have Aero, I was like, I need to put Aero in here, right? Like the second you lose a game where you're like, I could have dragged all those cards in one place, you're like, I need to put Aero in. So it's nice that some other cards are going to get some play. I do get what people are saying about the Shuri decks, but here's my thing. When I'm playing against a Shuri, I'm doing a turn 5 Aero every single time. I'm going to make sure that Red Skull is not going under that armor, or it's not going under the Cosmo. Like even if you don't have priority, you drag that thing out in the open, and then you're like, okay, now the Shuri player gets to decide what happens. So I think that's why I didn't even notice that. Like when people were saying like, drop the Taskmaster and then the 0. So I'm like, that's not even my play style. You know what I mean? But I guess we can lead into the Shuri, since you mentioned that you played with it. And I guess we kind of knew this was coming though, right? Because they said they were going to nerf, they were looking at the decks. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. That phrasing, everyone's like, yeah, they're not touching, Shuri, or we even assumed they weren't touching Thanos. But honestly, I actually really love the 10 power, because what is Thanos's most memeable, quote? Perfectly balanced as all things should be. Yeah, perfectly balanced. Yeah. And now he's a 6'10" that gains 10 to a 20. Like, it's just perfect to me, right?
Perfectly balanced. They killed it. I wonder if they planned that. But,
I hope so.
But yes. So with the Shuri deck, really, well, I guess they touched, She-Hulk too, which is often in Shuri decks. But Red Skull, so they brought him from a 515 down to a 513. He originally gave +2 power to every card on the opponent's side. Now he gives +1 power on the opponent's side. They brought She-Hulk down to 6'9". I'm totally fine with that. But anyways, with Red Skull, I was super confused when people were saying, you buffed him.
Because it went from a 5'7" to a 5'9".
Yeah. When it was explained to me like that, I'm like, oh, I get what you're saying. So I think this is what people are most furious about. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So I wanted to pull up the thing that Glenn said when in regards to Shuri itself. Let me find it real quick, because he did that big ass thread of like, if you have any questions about this, let me know, and we'll be able to do whatever I can. There was one where someone asked about why they didn't nerf Shuri herself. I I am having. There are
I
so
got
many
it right
ones.
here.
Perfect,
I got you,
thank
Brad. So somebody asked on Twitter, and by the way, everybody should go check out this thread. Glenn, I don't know. He's a crazy man. He made a whole thread. He's like, I'll answer whatever questions you have about this patch. But anyways, so somebody said, I understand that there aren't a lot of ways to nerf Shuri because of how she's designed, but what went into nerfing Red Skull so gently? I was honestly expecting something dramatic like a 512 with the same +2 text. So Glenn said, well, at 512 with +2, I think he's likely unplayable without Shuri, and he deserves to live. I do think there's a chance we need to move him down again, which is fortunately easy enough to do that I didn't mind starting soft. So basically he's saying he thinks it might have like killed Red Skull in any other deck, but I don't see anybody really playing Red Skull in any other deck. But yeah, he's saying like they might nerf him again in the coming weeks, maybe month, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Where was it? There was another one that he said. I remember it was on the front page of the subreddit. And of course now it's not there. He used the phrasing of they didn't want to change Shuri because they found her to be an exciting card and they didn't want to ruin her or whatever. Basically, everyone was memeing on the fact that he called her an exciting card, an exciting deck, because it is a very linear deck. But I do agree to an extent, not the exciting bit, but the idea of that philosophy of you don't want to ruin certain flavor aspects, because the original intention of Shuri, right, was this whole Wakandan thing of buffing other cards. And the idea of like buffing, like it's a great curve, right? You go Okoye, and then into Nakia, Shuri, Black Panther, and hopefully you get a nice big Black Panther out of it. But it doesn't work that way in practice because you have all these other cards. So it's a tough spot to be in to actually make those adjustments. I don't know. There's the other nerf of the interactions of Taskmaster, Mystique, and Absorbing Man. They have to be in play now. They did change that. So they can't just grab them from the graveyards. So I would argue that is a little bit of a nerf. But when you're playing Shuri in the correct way, or you have your correct curve of Sunspot armor, Cosmo a different lane, Shuri on either the Sunspot armor lane or the other location, then Red Skull on like behind Cosmo, and then Taskmaster behind armor, like that doesn't change anything, right?
Yeah.
And, like, that you still have that curve. So I don't know how you would change Shuri. I really don't, because anything other than the doubling, I would argue it ruins the card, right? Like,
Yeah, well, I heard people, like, when everybody was like, their wish list for nerfs and stuff like that, I saw people floating around like Shuri adding like +5 or +10. You know what I mean? Something like that, which I guess would make sense. It's just when 30 power drops on the board, like, it's untouchable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Personally, my favorite card by far is Valkyrie, and there's nothing better than just Valking underneath their armor and stuff because they think they're safe. But yeah, it's just 30 power seems too much. Now it's at 26 power. So I don't know if they even have an idea of what to do with Shuri or that deck or what. But yeah, all I know is I've played, like, before the nerfs, everybody was saying all they play against is Shuri and Thanos decks, right? Thanos, I didn't play against as much. Shuri, I played against a little bit more, but neither of them were like all the time. Since yesterday, I have played against so many Shuri decks. And I've heard other people saying, like, Thanos has been bumped down. Like, Shuri is, like, just number one.
Shuri's the more consistent deck now. I would argue that.
Yeah.
Which I would say puts her above Thanos right now.
But what are your thoughts on that? Like, here's my opinion. It's been my opinion since I started playing the game. Like, you need to play off-meta decks because any good player is going to get out of there if you're playing the same deck, right? So, I don't know. Like, I keep getting pinged on Twitter, people saying they're hitting Infinite with Shuri, but I'm like, you're getting like 1-2 cubes at a time. Like, the second I even start seeing the sequence, I'm like, all right, I'm getting ready to leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Even like being like, oh, I might have answers might not be enough if they have their curve, like I was saying. Yeah, I agree playing more off meta decks, but the thing is, it goes both ways, right? You should play off meta decks as a player looking to climb in general. But you should also play off meta decks looking to combat these Thanos decks, these Shuri decks, things like that. One deck I've seen a lot of is actually Galactus. I think I've run into Galactus more so than any other deck on ladder in the last couple days since the patch. By far, I would argue 60% of my games are against Galactus.
Wow.
And I think that's very interesting. I think they're taking advantage of the fact that Aero got nerfed and people are probably quick to drop her off the lists. And I don't necessarily enjoy that, to be honest. Galactus getting another buff. It's really weird. The meta is going to be in a weird spot. Now, to be fair, I'm going to play devil's advocate real quick. We have Hitmonkey approaching. Okay.
Yeah, we do.
And if Hitmonkey releases as the text that it says of +3 power for every other card you play this turn, that's insane. And it's going to make that the Sarah 2 deck come back. And most of the time, a lot of these bounce style decks, things like that, can't really combat against the power output of a Shuri deck. But maybe this one can.
Dude, yeah.
Maybe it can.
Especially
with
so
Beast,
excited.
right? Beast bouncing it back, making it cost 1. Moon Girl copying it, especially if you do Beast. If you have a turn where you go Beast and Moon Girl in the same turn, if you have like something like Zabu in play, and honestly, Quinjet might be good in this kind of deck too. To at least, even though, side note, I made this tweet about Quinjet that I've seen the subreddit and even a lot of people in Discord, like different Discords, whether it's Marvel Snap Zones or Marvel Snap's official Discord, and maybe I don't know if it's the same in yours or not, but people are freaking the fuck out about them killing Quinjet. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. Everyone's like, I love my collector deck and my dino deck, and they killed it. I'm like, when the fuck were you getting zero cost cards in your dino deck? Hey, let me remind you, what deck did I get to Infinite with this season?
The Dino deck.
Yeah, Dino Darkhawk. That ran Quinjet. Did I ever have zero cost cards? Almost never. Sometimes I got a random like one drop from the hub or whatever, and I'm like, cool, zero cost Korg, which was awesome. But other than that, the lowest I'd get them is like 2, maybe 1 sometimes if I got like the ongoing effects are doubled, the Citadel location.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of like Jeff Hoagland's like double up deck that he calls it, where it has like Hood, She-Hulk, it has Titania, Goose, right? So like you skip turn 5 if you have Quinjet and you doubled all your cards, like you have, a zero cost Titania, a zero cost Demon, you know what I mean? You can just flood it, right? So that deck specifically did get affected, but like all these other ones like Dino and stuff like that, absolutely not. But so that deck too, because I've seen a lot of people complain about it. I watched Jeff's streams like while I'm working and stuff, and he was talking about how they basically killed that deck, and like they didn't kill it. He said they dropped it down even worse from like a B tier, but like that deck was primarily good against Aero. And Aero is no longer doing what Aero did. Because basically with that deck, you had so many higher powered little things that they couldn't drag you around anywhere. And it was like kind of funny watching them try. But yeah, so that sucks because I was a huge fan of that deck. But other than that, like Glenn said in a tweet too, he talked about how like intuitively that card should have never made anything cost 0. You know what I mean? Like it reduces it by
every
1.
other reduction card says minimum 1.
Yeah, exactly. So they just brought it up.
This is a future-proofing thing. I absolutely agree with that. And I think we need, because they said they're going to present more of their balancing changes, like their philosophy, like to us in April. Like they're supposed to like give us more insight on that. I believe what is said in the patch update itself. Or Glenn said it, one or the other. And I think that's going to be really important because that's what I'm most interested in. More so than anything that came out of this patch, I'm very interested in finding out what their philosophy is. Because once we find... So let me give you an example. So I come from Magic, right? And Magic, typically there's the the discussion of like what turn is your format, meaning do games typically end, maybe not literally, but presentably on board, they could be over by turn 3 or 4. Are you a turn 3 format or a turn 4 format more often than not? And then that's the philosophy that we have to ask Wizards. Is Pioneer a turn 3 or 4 format? Is Modern a turn 3 or 4 format? Is that the threshold of power level that you are okay with existing in the game? Now, we don't have that necessarily the same way in Snap because it's a 6-turn format on its own in the sense of the structure. But we do kind of have that in some fashion in terms of power output. What kind of format do you want to see Snap be? What do you want the philosophy to be? Do you think that cards or decks like Shuri that could consistently get, at least now at this point, 26 and 26 in 2 lanes without too much of an issue by only simply playing 3 cards? Because you could, but then at the same time, do you consider Black Panther? Like if you go Wong, Black Panther, and then Artem Zola, it's kind of a same kind of situation of like 3 cards that present a bunch of power. Do you where do they draw the line? Like, is that what they want to see moving forward? And if you lower those down, you have to consider, okay, well, is the idea of having double 0-cost She-Hulks on turn 6 with 3 demons that 0 cost, 2 Titanias, like that, I would argue that would also cross that threshold of being too much.
Here's my philosophy, and anytime it happens, like I just want to throw my phone or break my computer. I don't think that any game should ever be won by somebody playing like 3 cards. Like I think that should be impossible. Like let me just give you an example. I'll give you 2 examples. Somebody playing Omega Red, Iron Man, and Onslaught. Just boom. Those 3 cards, you're done. You know? Actually, they might need one other card because you need another lane.
Well, it would be
because it buffs up on Onslaught too.
Yeah,
right?
but it would be 8 and the other lanes, right?
Yeah. So like I just like that, something like that haunts my dreams, right? I also don't like Wong into Mystique, into Gambit. That annoys me, but that's a harder combo to set up, I think. But yeah, I had somebody win a game where it was just Sunspot, Armor, Infinite. That was it. They just floated, kept just soaking it, you know what I mean? Those are my things where I'm just like, I wish there was something that just prevented that, because it's just like, I don't know. You get the worst draws ever, they get the best combo, and I'm irritated. But that's my thing. So,
okay. We have something on the horizon, though, because, what was announced recently was Conquest mode, right? And Conquest mode is just going to be battle mode, but online a ladder. And it's going to be like a league structure, right? Where you have to go like 5-0, and then you move on to the next league and you get tickets. They haven't exactly given us the full spec of it, but we've gotten enough to kind of piece together, at least when I think of like Magic and stuff like that, a similar structure. The decks that are going to be really, really good in laddering right now, like even Galactus for a lot of people, they swear by it. I know you've had different experience with Galactus personally, saying that you struggle to ladder with it, right? But everyone's...
It used to be great for me, but now
lately, But Galactus is probably going to be the worst deck to play, right? And that's in that mode. And I think that's going to be another thing of like, that's going to probably inhibit a lot of these kind of decks that are very much one-trick ponies that do these very simple plays, like the Sunspot into Infinite thing, or the Wong Black Panther, thing, or stuff like that. Though the outlier is probably Shuri. That's another extremely linear deck that I could see doing exceptionally well in that format, even though your opponent knows what's coming. Because the second I see Sunspot and Armor now, I immediately go Shuri.
Dude, really that's how I lost that Infinite. That's exactly how I lost that Infinite. I was like, oh, okay. They're going to drop Taskmaster and She-Hulk. That's what's coming, right? So I played for that, and then boom, a 20 power Infinite comes down. Because I'm like, oh, they're just going to have 2
good for them, right?
Yeah. So, and they snapped me too, and I'm just like, oh no, I see what's coming, you know. And because Shuri's played so much, but anyways, I do get what you're saying though, and that's what I can't wait for too. I can't wait for unranked mode as well, because I think just some of those goofy decks.
We're not getting it.
We're not.
No. Did you see their Reddit blog post when they announced the Conquest mode and shit? So at the very bottom,
why are you doing this to me?
So okay, on the roadmap, okay, you know that one that was in concept, the very end was deck testing mode. At the very end of their blog post, going over the roadmap, they said, "Where's unranked?" And they said, with the introduction of like Conquest and the friendly battles, stuff like that, and other plans along the way, we determined that we don't feel that a traditional unranked mode is the best way to go, so we're scrapping it for this deck testing mode, which makes me feel like it's going to be against a bot, right? But like that's still not unless they're just renaming it and it's still a ladder that doesn't have a rank. But when they say deck testing, I think bot, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's a
but
bummer.
That's not a good representation of trying to make sure if a deck works, because bots don't play to the utmost ability of what players can, and it's not an exact idea of how your deck can function against, you know, competent players. You might get the idea of like goldfishing and understanding, oh, the deck does what I want it to do, but not against the decks you expect to see. Yeah,
man, that's a bummer. But I'll tell you this. So, like I vowed to take this season off from like try-harding to hit infinite. Like I'm probably still gonna hit it, you know what I mean? But like the sanity that comes along with like just trying to like keep your mental health in check. Like I'm constantly seeing people. I had someone message me the other day that they're deleting their account. I had somebody on Twitter say that they're you know, they're like done for like the next week or something. Like it messes with your head. Like just the loss that happens as you see your rank go down.
You watch it. You watch it just go do. So, it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! When your life points go away. I hear that in my fucking head whenever I see the cubes go down. I hear the ding, and I'm just like, fuck.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough, man. And they're like, oh, here, like, okay, so Brad, the gentleman that he is, I didn't even realize we could play against each other. Brad donated me 8 cubes. I'm not an infinite yet.
What do you mean you haven't realized we could play against each other? Because like, that's the biggest problem with the MMR right now, right? Where people are like, I shouldn't be playing against infinite players when I'm like 75 or 90 or whatever.
I guess, yeah. So what I'm getting at, I guess, is I'm glad that that's coming. So they announced that they're making changes to rank where infinite players won't play non-infinite players. But also, what I'm glad about too is the new rank floors. We'll see where they're at though, right? Yeah. Because testing more decks, I've been bouncing around like 88 to 90, just testing new decks. But I'm also very fortunate because I have a Twitter following. So lately, if I want to test new decks, I can just shoot out a battle code and play against somebody. But that's not something the average player has. And like I said, I see so many people where it just messes with their head trying to rank up. So the fact that they're not just putting an unranked mode in there, just like something casual, unless they do some kind of matchmaking in battle mode. That's the only other thing. Like, if they just did that, that's basically unranked
that's
mode.
What Conquest is going to be. So why would they?
But it still has the competitive aspect to it, right?
Of course, yeah. That's what I'm saying. So, like, I think they do need more formats. I still think they need a best of 3. I still think the Conquest mode should be a best of, like maybe not a best of 3, but a sideboard. I think they need sideboards because, man, dude, these fucking complaints that people have about like nerfs, you know, whether justified or not, okay? And plenty of them are justified. I will give them that, which we'll get into the Leech thing in a second, I suppose. That's a good segue.
Yeah.
So many of it would be alleviated if you gave players the option of having some way to combat these decks in more than one go at it. You talk about the mental attitude that people have when it comes to losing ranks. I think that mental attitude is also fortified by the idea that not only is a singleton card game, because if they have it, they have it, and that can feel bad when they do. And B, it's just a best of one. You win or you lose, and that's all it is. And giving the opportunity to be like, 9 times out of 10, I could beat this deck, right? The better person can win, that kind of thing. Especially when you give them the tools to be like, I'm going against this deck. Let me bring these couple cards in. I feel confident about this, right? Like that would go such a long way. Dude, I really think.
Yeah. I had a tweet go like, I wouldn't say viral. It was semi-viral. But I tweeted out, I said, I officially met the lamest Marvel Snap player in the game. So it was during Project Pegasus as a hot location. It comes out on turn 1. The person Professor X is all the way to the right, and I have a pretty decent deck. It was like a Darkhawk deck, right? And the second location pops up, and it's Kamartaj. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna destroy this person. All right, they put their Professor X. I'm gonna just wreck them, right? I just don't get the draws. So on turn 3, they drop Mystique on Kamartaj, lock it up, same as Professor X. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can just win the tiebreaker because they have 0 power in the middle, but on turn 4, they drop Ironheart. And I'm just like, I'm out of here, right? But like you're saying, like 9 out of 10 times, that would not have happened. I just did not get the draws I needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of 2 out of 3.
Well, I guess since we're, kind of hovering around the idea of Leech, why don't you tell the wonderful folks listening or watching how Leech got buffed?
Leech got buffed. Did he get buffed?
Yes, he did.
How is he buffed? I'm not.
Did you not look at the bug change, or towards the bottom?
I thought I knew everything.
It says cards that have lost their ability no longer get those abilities reset if they go into Quantum Tunnel or Lockjaw.
Yeah, they fixed that bug. Okay, yeah, and that's kind of messed up. Yeah, because I remember that happening when they had the Quantum Tunnel on as a hot location or featured location or whatever. But yeah, anyways, a lot of people are upset about Leech. So for those of you listening, he was not on that list of everything we were talking about. So yeah, people are upset. I guess before we get into some of the stuff going on in the community, what are your thoughts? I was one of the most vocal people. I was just like, I don't care about Leech. I don't care about him. I personally did not see him that much. When it happened, it was just as annoying as any other annoying thing in the game, right? Like a Galactus play, somebody doing like those 3-card just insane moves. Like, I did not have a problem. If I personally ran into Leech more often, I would just build an anti-Leech deck, one where it begs for you to take its abilities away, So I didn't really mind, but people were freaking out because they didn't touch Leech. What are your thoughts?
I think Leech is unfortunately an integral part of the game. Until we have more consistent ways to combat turn 6 plays, because Leech is by far the best one right now, right? And it used to be Leader was one of the best ones, and they nerfed him to the ground. And Glenn even covered this, saying they or at least maybe it was in the patch notes. I'm confusing the two constantly, but regardless, someone said from Second Dinner that they want to bring down the power level of these decks that encourage holding cards until turn 6 to get this huge splashy play. Leech is unfortunately one of the best cards at doing that. And yes, you still have the potential of a turn 4 Leech in Thanos. I think people over-exaggerate how often it happens to them. Personally, as a person that's played a lot of Thanos and gone against a lot of Thanos, it doesn't happen too often. Also, I've gotten a lot better as of late of looking at my hand as I'm approaching turn 4 or turn 5 against a Thanos deck or a non-Thanos deck. And I look and I'm like, what kind of play can I make here? Am I okay with these other cards that I play if I go with this option? Am I okay with these cards getting leached? And I look at it and I'm like, well, what else is in my deck? Yeah, I am okay with that. I'm okay with that. You know what the thing is? People are also playing these turn 6 throw-up plays. And it feels bad when you have those taken away from you. But guess what? That's the intent. Leech is saying you cannot do that every single game. And just retreat if you get leeched. You give them 1 or 2 cubes, right?
I'll tell you. Lately, I part of the reason my rank drops is because I'm dumb enough to stay in against all of these different Sarah control decks. They drop Sarah on turn 5, and you just have no clue. You don't know. Are they dropping?
There's so many different versions. It's just Sarah, and how many small things can you drop at once?
Yeah, is it Shang-Chi? Is it Killmonger? Is it Enchantress? Did they draw every single one of these cards? Are they all about to come flooding? But the reason Leech and Leader got so popular was to curb how overpowered Silver Surfer was, right? You would leech it and you're just like, okay, well now you can't do your little Silver Surfer play, right? But now, like, I lose to a lot of Sarah decks, and maybe I'll go back to my little Thanos deck. But also kind of like to your point about how it's probably not happening as much as people say. I actually had people in my Discord keep spreadsheets. Like nobody, like they kept track of, we had hundreds of games tracked. And the amount of times people got leeched was like in maybe 10% or less, right? Mm-hmm. But also, as people who play Thanos decks, how many times have you leeched somebody and you still lost? You know what I mean? Like during Project Pegasus, you had a bunch of people like, I have 5 extra power on turn 2. I'm gonna leech, right? And they'd only hit like one card because both people draw. Yeah, exactly. So, but anyways, I still haven't dealt with it. I think since the patch, I got leeched like once or twice. But anyways, let's discuss the community. So Glenn, one of the questions, and he says he knew this was coming. So Glenn said on Twitter in his thread, since it's coming up a lot, there's only been one strong deck using Leech, and nerfs to Thanos decks weaken him too. Our time to implement behavior VFX changes is also limited. We decided to take more time, find a change we like and could make, then see if it was warranted. All right, that's what Glenn said. So everybody interpret that how you want to. The way let's talk about how we interpret it. I interpret that as, okay, he's only in Thanos decks, right? They made some other changes to Thanos, which will hopefully have the residual effect of taking down the Leech stuff as much, right? Yeah. So that's the way I interpret it. And it's also because he's saying they have a limited amount of time. They're still looking at Leech. They just didn't do it right now. That's how I interpreted it. How about you?
Yeah, I would probably have to say something similar. I mean, I think the biggest problem, because he talks about there's only a limited amount of time they can do things. And I'm not a fan of the fact that they have these patches locked in 2 or 3 weeks in advance.
I don't think any of us are.
Because I understand you have all the data and maybe the data is consistent through those next 2 weeks, but sometimes all it takes is the meta to just adjust and be like, there's a lot of this, we have to combat it. And there's always gonna be boogeymen, but like there's also certain decks you have to respect. I'm not trying to, talk about Magic every single time, but there is a deck in Magic and Pioneer called Lotus Field, and also another one in Modern called Dredge. And those are decks that are incredibly easily hated out by, again, specific sideboard cards. Rest in peace. Anything that fucks with the graveyard or messes with the ability to draw or like make absorbent amount of mana. Because mana cheating, of course, in any game that has that kind of reduction or energy in Snap's case is always going to be an issue. Look at Quinjet with Thanos, or look at Zabu pre-nerf. Those decks exist. They've never banned them straight into the ground. They still play and they still are very powerful, but people sometimes forget about them. They lose respect for those decks, don't come prepared to sideboard against them, and then it wins a tournament. And everyone's like, and then the next week, everyone's like, well, fuck, I guess the deck's back. Well, let's put this shit back on our sideboards. And guess what? The deck doesn't do anything for the next month. And then the cycle will repeat over and over and over again. And I think the same can be true for decks like Thanos or things that have like Leech or these kind of plays, or even like Aero to an extent. Which is Aero even Aero anymore? Is that deck dead?
I don't know. I haven't really seen it much. A lot of people are just doing like doing wave with Dr. Doom and She-Hulk now, just doing that whole thing.
But yeah, it's whatever. It's a lack of a nerf. Maybe it's hard to make that request that people wanted of like the next turn for Leech.
Yeah.
Maybe in the terms of the way the game is programmed or designed. Maybe that's
they did say, they made that big announcement that they could start doing hot fixes without the patch.
Yeah, they said it's fucked up right now.
Yeah, they said it was messed up, so they can't do that. So I don't know. I'm giving them a little bit of leeway, but yeah, I try to empathize with them. I'm like, I can't imagine trying to balance everything. Just like think about your daily life, just trying to balance like work and like free time. You know what I mean? And these guys are like dealing with hundreds of cards. But anyways, there was a little bit of some fuss in the community. One of our fellow creators, the wonderful Eggs, she retweeted that tweet we just read from Glenn, and it said, This is incredibly tone deaf. Leech was always the problem and has been used in several archetypes outside of Thanos. The community has been asking for this since Leader, and it was decided that lowering Thanos' power by 1 was the fix for Leech. And Eggs quote tweeted him, and we learned that Glenn then blocked Eggs for sale. So the community has been chatting about that, and what do you think? Was the block justified? Was Eggs justified? Are we taking sides?
I'm gonna try to remain as neutral as possible because I think both have merit. I think Eggs as a content creator and doing this as their livelihood to an extent is well within her right to say and express frustrations with a game, especially when you have when you love a game as much as you do. You of course you can. And I think maybe the language of saying this is tone deaf and the idea of like quote tweeting someone is essentially equivalent to adding them and like notifying them that you're talking directly to them. I think maybe that could have been, understandably taken, the wrong way if she didn't intend it to be as harsh as it came off, at least in Glenn's mind. So I get the block in that sense of like, I don't want to deal with this, especially in the context of having that thread be open, probably getting bombarded with shit. I mean, just look at that. Just look at her replies alone in that quote tweet. How many people like tweeted at Ben Brode and like Marvel Snap being like, "How can you allow this to happen?" and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that.
Like, just imagine how many people that you don't see are just putting at like these people with like 3 followers that you don't see on your timeline at Ben Brode, at Marvel Snap, at Glenn Jones. Like, it's probably fucking exhausting. And maybe he reached like a little breaking point of like, I need to chill for a second. Though at the flip side of that is it's never a good look from someone, within a company blocking a content creator of the product that you put out. It's so I see both sides of it. And fuck, man, dude, and I'm going to tell you my tweet about the Quinjet thing, I think sums it up perfectly. The last thing I said on that tweet is that this community is full panic or nothing.
Yeah.
It really is. More so than any other community I've ever been a part of. Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, Pokemon, Smite, Rainbow Six Siege. I've played a lot of games competitively. And Jesus Christ, this one is so negative all the time. And it's concerning. And I think we as content creators, and I think Eggs is a great content creator. I like their stuff. I like watching a lot of different content creators. But when you exude negative energy, your followers are going to echo that, and it's going to leak into the rest of the community one way or another. And I'm not saying anyone's at fault. I'm not. Again, you're within your right to express frustration, but this community needs to dial it back a little bit in terms of the panic button.
I would say a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to play generous. I'm trying to give, like a little sugar with the bad news kind of thing. But like, fuck, man, just chill. Just breathe a little bit. But again, this goes back to what you're saying about the ladder and the mental fortitude of like what it takes to just not give a shit about your rank. And I've seen plenty of people say, it's whatever, I don't care. I just want to play it for fun. And good for you, dude. That's fucking phenomenal. I applaud you unironically. No fucking bullshit. That is amazing. But the average person can't. Giving us an unranked, giving us more tools to combat in ranked, making it so that the singleton or single round or single match kind of like construct of the game isn't so heavy-handed on the way that people perceive the game. Just fuck, dude. Do something, because that will trickle down. It's like Reaganomics, except it'll work. It'll work. I promise.
Yeah, no, I definitely get it too. I get Eggs' frustration, and yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I see both sides of it because, in my other world of content creation, I've had like hundreds or even thousands of people just tagging me, right? And or in my YouTube comments just saying nasty stuff. So I can imagine Glenn, I don't know, I can't even imagine when he was like, you know what, I'm going to open up a thread for questions on this day of like these patches, like knowing that they didn't touch Leech and stuff like that. So, but I can imagine he was just getting bombarded. He was getting added like crazy. And when that's happening, like I have very thick skin. I have such, like, it's crazy. It takes so much to offend me. But when it's just coming at you like in a wave, like your blocking trigger just gets really, you're just quick to do it, you know?
Yeah,
but
it's
even
just
Egg
that
said,
rock chipping at it.
yeah. Yeah, she followed up and she said, please stop adding Ben. You know, she said she made a spicy comment, got blocked, not the first time. So I'm sure it'll be cool. Like Eggs, she's in the creator program that they just announced, you know, and stuff like that. But yeah, no, everybody needs to calm down. And I think here's something I've been trying to teach my audience on the YouTube side and even on Twitter. There is this kind of like groupthink that comes along, right? And so let's just use Leech as an example. When you have all the biggest content creators with thousands and thousands of views complaining about Leech, right? Then obviously the community is going to complain about it too. And I keep asking for the data, you know, because I want to see, like, is this real or is this just something we feel? That's why we started making those spreadsheets over on my Discord server. But then it starts to become a groupthink. Are you going to be the one guy who says, oh no, you're wrong, that thing isn't a problem? No, you're just going to agree with people. Like, that's just how group psychology goes, you know? But like you're saying, there's like just so much of it. So my other community that I'm in is for Multiverses, this little kind of Smash Brothers fighting game. It's gotten bad lately, but it wasn't as bad. But anyways, like there's this kind of like this balance that you got to find, because I don't see it nearly as much over there, and there's way more to complain about. You see what I'm saying? So I do think we do need to chill, but I also do think like Second Dinner's got to meet us halfway, give us those like tools. But I guess the last thing we'll talk about is the lack of buffs. That was something that people were upset about, because when you're talking about these tools, like give us something to work with. Like you don't have to keep nerfing cards. Just give us better cards or you know, improve the cards that we have. And everybody keeps going back to Wolverine. Everybody loved the change that they did to Wolverine. They're like, do more stuff like that. Did you take the survey? They did a little March survey, because one of the things on there was, what would you like the most? And there was a few things, and one of them was weekly balance changes. You know?
That one concerns me. I understand. I understand people being like, "That sounds great." It doesn't. Imagine if you're playing another game and they did the same thing. Like, just draw comparisons to like, because you have to let metas settle and adjust. I wouldn't be opposed. I mean, it's tough because like you can't say like, you know, every other month, right? Because maybe that's too long. But sometimes maybe that's what it needs. Like, you need seasons to last longer than just 30 days. It's such a hard thing to figure out. But going to the buff thing, someone asked that in the thread, and Glenn replied, I generally prefer to include some buffs with any nerfs, but the turbulent nature of the Zabu and Thanos metagames led me to reduce the variables at play to improve how we gather data. We also have new plans for debuting buffs in future updates, so stay tuned. So he's teasing buffs soon, and I get it. You don't want to throw too much in one patch, because if you introduce all these nerfs, but then you buff like 3 other cards at the same time, it's going to be harder to get data, because then you're looking at, okay, well, why is X card performing the way it is? Is it because we buffed this card and it's being played? We see this card actually being played a bit more with this card. Is it inflated because people are trying out this combo and it's the flavor of the week? Is this card going down because it's actually our nerf worked, or is it because people are more so inclined to play the buffs that we did, and you know that's in you know, putting in the other direction? So I get that. And I agree, I want more buffs. But his answer was sufficient to me. I'm okay with it. And I think we'll probably get another balance update sooner rather than later. I think we'll probably get one right with the new season in about 2 weeks.
I would also say it also complicates things, like, because you always got to be looking at the different variables and everything like that. It's hard to control for them, but like, we also have to take into consideration every single week they're introducing a new Series 5 card, right? So we don't know how that's going to play, even though it's not as accessible. You know what I mean? Like, I just picked up like Teenage Warhead, and you know, nothing crazy. Like, it's very cool. Like, it's a cool little like kind of tech card. You know what I mean? That not a lot of people are expecting. Video coming soon, but yeah, they also have to take that into consideration. But I get what you're saying about like metas need to settle, but also like that's what I love about the game. I like finding like workarounds and trying different things. I want people to like, hey, this is how you get around it. But anyways, like I have an entire list. I've just been lagging on making a video. I have a list, maybe 20 decks, 20 different decks, don't include Thanos, don't include Shuri, that people are hitting infinite with. Like your deck that you were using is on that list, you know? And that's what I hope the community understands when they're complaining about these overpowered cards or these decks or whatever. There's other people hitting infinite without these decks. So like, you got to think about that for a minute. And those are the decks that I'm trying to use because I refuse to touch Shuri. But even just playing hundreds of games of Thanos last season, that deck got boring to me. You know, I just don't want to play it anymore. Like I'm messing around with some other Thanos variations. But yeah, hopefully everybody chills and but also part of it is the card acquisition thing. That's also causing an issue. I don't know. There's a lot going on. Which
I don't think that the changes to the token shop and the token acquisition rate or anything. When they asked directly in that the Ask the Team section on the Discord about like is there really any change to the people who are Series 3 complete trying to get 4 and 5? And they said it's a 7% increase every month. Okay. Do you know what that is? If you got generously, like they said, 5,000 to 6,000. Let's go high. Let's go 6,000 tokens in a month. Do you know what 7% of 6,000 tokens is?
No, 100.
Like 450. Hey, guess what? Yeah. 450 tokens a month isn't even half of a Series 3 card, which you can't even unlock anymore in the token shop. Like, God, I don't mean to be negative. I really don't. It feels like everything they do lately is a step forward, 2 steps back, right?
Yeah.
Like you're making great changes. I really think a lot of these changes can and have the potential to be extremely well perceived and well received, especially like the roadmap and things like that. But then you do other things like the token shop changes, the token acquisition, which is great for Series 3 players who are not quite Series 3 complete. But what happens when these people finally catch up and finish their Series 3? Because eventually the majority of the players, as we approach the first year of Marvel Snap, of course we'll always get new players, right? But the way the game is, the majority of the base are going to be around Series 3 complete, working on Series 4 and 5. What happens then? Do they have to make another change to bump it up even more? And the Token Tuesdays are a great step, right? Moving forward. And like, that's another thing that's well received. But then there's the other thing, they shoot them. It's like the left foot just healed from last month's shooting, and then they shoot the right foot.
Yeah, my dream is, especially like with this creator program kicking off, like, and we got the announcement, like I got my email, what was it, last week or was it the week before? But anyways, my hope is that they start doing some kind of like focus groups, right? And just like, because I keep hearing about how much internal testing they do with like cards and stuff like that. All the second dinner people have their own accounts and they're playing and, you know, they're noticing things. I read the Q&As that they post on Marvel Snap Zone and stuff. And like, they talk about like their perspective as like the developers and then as the players. And then they look into things, right? But there's something that's being missed. There's some kind of gap, and they need people who just have no affiliation with Second Dinner that play this game a ton that are giving them some feedback. I was just watching Freddie Babe's video before we hopped on, and he was just talking about how like there's something being missed, like when they're going through this data, you know, that like, because we're seeing something completely different. So I just hope with the creator program or something, it gets their ear to the ground a little bit better with the community, you know, but they're listening. So I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is, but like you're saying, they're doing things and we're sitting here like, what is happening? So I don't know.
Well, let's try to end the episode on a positive note. And we don't have too much time left, but let's try and roll through these as fast as possible. We have some data mines for new cards coming out, and a lot of them look really cool. They're really interesting, and I don't know how to feel about some of them. But do you have a favorite from what you've seen that you're like most excited for, and just like whether or not it's gonna be good, or you're just like, this is super interesting?
Okay. Well, we were talking before, and here's the one I'm most interested in, and it's High Evolutionary. Yeah. I don't know how good he will be. That's what we were talking about before this. So everybody listening, if you haven't checked it out, go to Marvel Snap Zone. They have all the info on it. High Evolutionary is a 4/7 card, and he, it says at the start of the game, unlock the secret ability of all your cards with no abilities. So it sounds like it's going to be like a Thanos card, right? Like you just have it in your deck, and it's going to affect other things. So it's going to unlock quote unquote secret abilities for Wasp, Misty Knight, Shocker, Cyclops, The Thing, Abomination, and Hulk. So it's going to give them all sorts of abilities. Wasp, afflict 2 random enemy cards with -1 power. Abomination, costs 1 less for each enemy card in play that's afflicted with negative power. So there's like a lot of things going on. So that just sounds like an interesting card. That's like one of the reasons I wanted Thanos. I'm just like, this is interesting, you know? But I just don't know how good it's going to be. I don't know.
Well, I don't think you play all of them, right? You have to pick, because like it's either afflicting enemy cards or it's floating energy to get some kind of benefit. Though there's one that's a mixture of both, which is Cyclops, where it's when you end up with cool. Injury, he's the mixture. One thing that I think that I haven't seen anyone mention when seeing High Evolutionary is, does this mean we're never getting any more vanilla cards?
Like no abilities?
Yeah. Is this just the slate of vanilla cards forever? Because it's specifically talking about these, and if you add another vanilla card, you have to add another secret ability on it, right? For High Evolutionary. And
is this all of them though?
Yeah, this is all of them. The only other vanilla cards are ones like the tokens, like the Squirrel tokens, Sinister, and Brood, right? Which are all the other ones. So I don't know. Like it makes me feel like we're never getting more vanilla cards, which kind of which means as if you're a Patriot player, by the way, don't mix these cards. It probably won't work because you're giving abilities, Patriot cards, but not having abilities. But if you're a Patriot player, then you kind of get what you get. You're hoping we just get cards that make tokens. Then that's it. Like White Tiger tokens, Brood, but you need things like Brood or Sinister, like things that make a lot of tokens at once for a low cost. But I think it looks cool. I think you probably just pick, like maybe do like for the floating energy, you probably put like Sunspot in the list.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think you got to pick a direction and like maybe
Hazmat Luke Cage with these afflicting ones seem pretty cool. Though.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I don't think it's like, High Evolutionary, then you just stack your deck with all of them, right?
Yeah.
You like pick a direction, like the Hazmat Luke Cage, put Wong in there. But yeah, like even Hulk, it's +2 power for each turn you ended with unspent energy.
You got to cheat him out.
Yeah, so you got to use waves, something like that, So it'll be interesting. I think it's almost like Thanos, like I'm saying, like there'll be a lot of creativity that I think comes along with that card. Which one of these are you most excited for? What do you think is the most interesting?
It's the ones that haven't been given text yet. It's probably Spider-Man 2099. That is...
we're talking about all of them. Okay, yeah, that looks interesting.
Yeah, so I love Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara is probably my favorite Spider-Man of all. I just love the vibe. I love the aesthetic of that entire universe and everything like that. I think his backstory is very interesting. And of course, Peter Parker is fantastic. Miles is fantastic. I love pretty much any rendition of Spider-Man. I mean, I have, like we talked about earlier, I have all the fucking costumes and shit like that on that wall behind me. Other wall, I got fucking the Amazing Fantasy introduction of Spider-Man. So you and I are both very big Spider-Man fans. So I have no idea what the fuck these are going to do, because the Spider-Man that we have so far, being Spider-Man Miles, Spider-Man Peter Parker, and then Spider-Woman, I think the only ones we have right now. They all do vastly different things. One closes off the lane, one cares about moving stuff, or things being moved, and the other one cares about like afflicting cards, which again, I guess that afflicting one could probably, Spider-Woman can go into the Hazmat High Evolutionary kind of deck, probably. Right? So yeah, I'm not a fan of Spider-Ham though.
I don't know I don't know. He's just silly. And did you see that Venomized version, that variant that came out? I saw that today. I'm like, I need that. I need that as soon as possible. But I'm curious what he's going to do. But I'm just excited that they're releasing that. And then Ghost Spider as well. But Glenn also
Another
hinted
move
at he's like, hey, there's going to be something for move players coming soon, and I'm pretty sure it's this season because Ghost Spider, we already have her text, right? It is on reveal, move the last card you played here, right? Yeah. So I'm wondering if Spider-Ham and Spider-Man 2099 are going to be in that similar vein of some kind of movement. But yeah, we'll see. I'm really excited for that season. Like, those are definitely, that's going to be when I'm blowing a bunch of tokens. Because there's no new cards coming up that I'm like super duper excited about. Like, even like mentioning High Evolutionary, like I might get some of these for like content. But do
you think he's a big bad? Everyone thinks he's going to be another big bad. That's
what I'm thinking. My son brought that up, and then when I saw what he did, I'm like, he's got to be. He's got to be. Like something that's like game changing like that. But let's run through these other cards that are coming out. What is it, next month for the Guardian? No, it'll be May.
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 So we have Nebula.
Yeah.
The season pass card for May, which is either going to be a 1/1 or a 4/6 because we have some conflicting ideas. The data mine aspect of the card shows a 1/1, but the data mine version of what the season pass is going to be in those images of the season pass shows her as a 4/6, but her ability is the same. Each turn your opponent doesn't play a card here, +2 power, except on the turn that you play this. I think it's going to be really cool. I think she's going to be very interesting, more interesting as a 1-drop than a 4-drop. Gives her more chances to grow. But I'm always a little bummed out when I get really cool 1-drops because on one hand, I'm like, sweet, more good stuff for Curve. The other hand, I'm like, Killmonger, motherfucker. What do you think about Nebula?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Like, I'm just thinking of the different stuff you'll be able to do, like even like storming a lane, and if you have the the ability to drop her with like a Spider-Man or a Professor X, just locking down a lane and just having her sit there. You'll have to get sneaky and creative. So I can't wait to see what people do. Like, she'll be the season pass card too, and that's kind of what we were talking about with card acquisition. I just feel like if more players have access to cards, we'll get more interesting things. So yeah. That's what I'm excited about to see with her, because I have been interested in like kind of locking down lanes, like with Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I was watching Jeff Hoagland play a lot of Storm since they changed Thanos and the way Space Zone works, and he's storming a lane and then he drops Negasonic on it. So if they play there, it just blows up. So I'm thinking of like iterations of that with Nebula. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, the next two, these seem like they might go together. So Iron Lad, copy the text of your deck's top card. So just by itself.
Sounds a little wonky in the way the wording, right? It shouldn't be like the top card of your deck.
Yeah. No wonder why it sounded weird when I read it. Yeah, it should say something like that.
And then you have Howard the Duck, which is a 1/2 with ongoing. Tap this to see the top card of your deck. When I first saw this one, I was like, tapping? Like, I'm thinking of Magic, like you tap your shit sideways. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? But it makes more sense. You're just click it. You just keep clicking it. But yeah, you see the top card of the deck, and then you can basically be like, oh, I want that for Iron Lad. But my question is, does Iron Lad work as a Absorber Man kind of thing, where if it sees a on reveal, does it get the on reveal ability? Because it is an on reveal itself of copying the top card. So like, if I copy like a White Tiger, do I get the White Tiger ability, or does it just say does it miss the window of timing? I don't like, how does that work?
I'm curious. What would make this card better, I think, is if it was like an ongoing. What if it was just regularly changing, right? So as you're playing, that'd
be so dumb in an on reveal deck, though.
Yeah, just completely random.
Like, vroom, vroom.
But with the release of these cards, like that seems like it's going to be a 12,000 token deal, right? Like, why would you want? Can you see any use for Iron Lad without Howard the Duck?
If you're really, really wanted to play some gambling, right? You're like. Side note: Iron Lad's a fucking cool character. That's Kang in a different timeline, by the way. Which sucks that like it's weird we're getting another version of Kang, but we're not getting. Maybe we'll get. I'm blanking on his name. He's Reed and Sue Richards' son in one universe, and then he's in charge of Quang Enterprises, which actually in that universe, the Stark Tower or the Avengers Tower in New York was bought by Quang Enterprises and is run there, and it's like an evil corporation, kind of like an Oscorp thing, but it's Kang who's in charge of it. God, Kang is such a cool character. Like,
Yeah.
I love his ability, but fuck, man, I want all of them. I want all of the Kangs. Why did they give us the Tut one for a variant and not his own card if you're giving us
I'm wondering if
Iron
we are, though, because the whole Kang Dynasty thing's kicking off with the MCU. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as new movies come out, we might. But yeah, it's so weird that they did the Tut one just as like a variant, but not an individual card since they're doing Iron Lad.
But I agree.
yeah.
These go together. Howard the Duck is a cool card. You need him turn 4 earlier. Anything later, you don't get the benefit of him. But even then, it's probably still fine. It helps. It'll make a difference. But again, hard to get excited for all these when I'm thinking about the price tag that comes up with all of them, right?
Yeah. So here, explain this to me, because I'm new to the card stuff. So the top deck, are you drawing from the top of your deck? So is that going to change? So if I dropped Howard the Duck on turn 1, my top deck card, is that going to be different turn 2, or is it going to be the same card? Because I think of America Chavez just always like
so
back there.
that is one thing. So America Chavez is probably going to be a really weird interaction because there are times, which is the reason you see Yondu sniper, because the deck shuffles, which I think may be something that they need to change with the game, because the deck shuffles itself. And then sometimes America Chavez is in line to be drawn, but the card underneath her will be drawn instead because it said her ability says she can't be drawn. But she's technically sitting on top of the deck, which is why Yondu sometimes snipes her and sometimes doesn't. But what I find, so that might be weird with Howard. You might just constantly see America Chavez over and over again, which would probably tell me you don't want America Chavez in the deck with Howard the Duck. Or secondary needs to change the way she works and makes it so she sits at the bottom no matter what.
Yeah.
Which I don't see how that would be a very hard thing to do. Like she always sits at the bottom, and then on turn 6 she moves to the top.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be hard, but intuitively it's wonky, right?
Got it. So, but what we're saying is Howard the Duck, he's only going to see one card and that's it.
Yeah, and then you're going to draw the next turn. So
yeah. Okay.
Unless we introduce more card draw outside of Crystal and which Crystal won't even help because she shovels, and Adam Warlock. So
yeah. So yeah, these are things like, that's why I love watching content and stuff like, like Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I was like, whatever. But then I hear people just, theory crafting and stuff like that. So we'll see when the time comes. But yeah, for now, I don't know. But I'll be playing around with some Nebula. She's free with the season pass. Well, $10, I'll take it.
Yep. And we will probably start wrapping up. But I guess before we go, I do want to start doing this every time we do an episode. What do you have going on, Chris? What do you have coming up in terms of your own channel and stuff like that? Maybe things outside of this channel. I know you have a separate channel that you go into more like philosophical shit. What do you have on the slate coming up that you want to tell people about? Give them a little sneak peek of like what's to come.
So, okay. So I do need to put together a video of all these decks that are hitting infinite because it's getting way too long. Yeah. I've been collecting them all season. I have not been feeling well lately, but being here with you, Brad, you gave me some energy. So that's why I'm behind. I haven't been releasing as much content, but yeah, I'll be getting that out. So it's going to be I might split it into a couple videos because I have like 20 different decks that are hitting infinite that are non-Thanos, non-Shuri, and I like doing content like that to show people, hey, you can get creative and you don't got to play something stale and boring for like 60 ranks just to hit infinite. Yeah. That's what I got. That's what I got going on in the next, hopefully, week or so. How about yourself? And by the way, hold on. Before you go, let me plug Brad. Go fucking subscribe to this guy's channel, okay? Like, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but the amount of effort, like, you put in 10 times the effort that I do in my videos, so that makes me feel bad. I'm like, the views should be going to you. So anyways, I'll shut up now. What do you have coming up?
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I'm going to be doing more president stuff. I got a lot of people asking about, like, I got the most comments, I think, on that video outside of, like, maybe the one about my cyborg thing, being like, please more of this. And that one took not a long time. It probably took me 8 hours consecutively, nonstop. Yeah. I think I took an hour break because hearing the way the AI program works is like you have to like type it in and like you have to keep generating it over and over again to like, get it to sound right. So not only did I hear the presidents in my ear the entire time as I'm making the script, I also had to hear all the different renditions of like that one didn't quite sound right. Let me add a punctuation here that can change the way that he says it. And I heard like 6 different renditions of every single line, and some I deleted and didn't use. And like, so hearing the presence in your ear over and over again, and then having to play along with it and like do like my part of like acting like I'm there with them, it was exhausting, but really fun. I'm going to be doing more of those. I'm actually going to probably do one of them reacting to the patch and maybe the data mine stuff. I probably won't be there on that one because I don't know if you watched mine, but there was a part where I left the call, or like my character left the call because I was getting pissed. I did that because I was tired of talking. I just wanted to type. And then that's when I had the special guest come in because I thought it'd be funny. So yeah, I got that stuff coming on. I'm going to probably do more gameplay stuff at some point. It's just not where my interest lies. Like I love playing the game obviously, but I like the more, talking about like data behind the game and like why community members feel one way or the other and things about that kind of nature. But hopefully we'll get more stuff. And I'll probably start streaming more too. I used to stream Magic back in the day, but maybe we'll do more of that. So yeah, we got some stuff coming up. It's gonna be fun.
Beautiful. And it's all linked down below, so don't be lazy. Go subscribe to this man.
And of course, thank you so much for guys just watching, giving us feedback, your support for the show. It means a lot to us. You've definitely, obviously, we've helped grow the channel of Chris's. I know you recently went over 8,000, was it? Subscribers?
I'm almost at 8,000. I'm like Oh wait, I did go over 8,000.
Let's go!
I'm trying to hit 8,500 now. I'm always moving the goalpost. So yeah, 8,000 beautiful people. I love it.
And I just went over 100 after actually basically just starting the channel last month of like actually doing like consistent releases. So I'm happy with that growth so far. Hopefully we can, I'll try to catch up to you at some point. I'm hoping for 1,000 in the next, my goal is the next 3 months to get to 1,000. So we'll see how that goes. But again, it wouldn't be possible that you guys listening and watching, giving support. It means a lot to us. And we hope that you'll continue listening to us ramble about this fucking game that we all love the next time you come in. Bye-bye.
Beautiful.